Notice of this regular meeting of the Pitman Board of Education was advertised in the South Jersey Times, posted at Borough Hall, a copy thereof delivered to all Pitman schools to be posted and posted on the district's website. Further notice was posted and filed as required by law, stating that the board would meet in closed session at 7 p.m. in Pitman High School Media Center. The president shall entertain any objections with supporting reasons to the contrary of this meeting on the grounds that it violates the Open Public Meeting Act. Seeing none, good evening and welcome to this evening's Board of Education meeting. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Miles, please call roll.
Mrs. Bolton.
Here.
Mrs. Farrell.
Here.
Mr. Grossman.
Present.
Mrs. Higbee-Iono.
Here.
Mrs. Miller.
Here.
Mrs. Papalardo.
Here.
Mrs. Pope.
Here.
We have a quorum, 7-0.
Thank you. That's going to bring us to our presentation portion of the evening. I'll turn it over to Mr. Crispin.
Twice a year, we're required to present our semi-annual report on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There's a link that's on the agenda for those who have that accessibility. Just real quick, the link was pretty much similar to what we used prior in our first 6 months of the school year. It talks a little bit about how we've met the requirements of HIB. There's a summary of the HIBs that are reported for this 6-month period. For PES, there were 6 reported, 4 were confirmed. For Memorial, 1 was reported, 0 were confirmed. There were 0 reported for the high school, junior, senior high school, 0 confirmed, total 7 reported, 4 confirmed. Some of the trends that are listed there in terms of some of the things that are happening in this particular area. School safety teams continue to meet to review this data to kind of see where there might be some issues that might need to be addressed and developing plans to address them. Meetings are held with Rebecca Moody and our coordinators at each of the schools just to review procedures to make sure everybody is consistent, how those procedures are applied. Trainings provided where necessary, and then there's a number of school initiatives listed there that we have incorporated to try to prohibit HIB as much as we can. We know that their numbers may look low in terms of the numbers reported, but we know these are things that are constantly happening. Some of them get reported and some of them don't, so we want to try to be as proactive as we can. And that's it.
Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none. It's going to bring us to our first public comment. The Pitman Public School Board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. This is the first of 2 public comments we will have tonight. The first public hearing is on agenda items only. This is public comment, not a dialogue between the board and the public. You will have 3 minutes to speak and is your opportunity to comment or ask questions. In accordance with board policy number 0167, we ask that you state your name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable. To be recognized to speak, please stand to the podium located to my left and speak clearly. Seeing none, that'll take us to correspondence. Mr. Miles, do we have any correspondence?
We have no correspondence for the month.
Okay. I will now move to accept a motion for the minutes of the Pitman Board of Education as held on the dates listed below are approved and printed, as printed, and reading dispensed with. May I have a second?
Second, Papalardo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any objections? Okay. Seeing none. Hold on one sec. No, you came for it. Sorry, I was thinking there may have been an abstention. All right, that's going to bring us to our president's report. So we've obviously had a lot of stuff happening. It's the end of the school year. We had our recognition night. I thought that went really well. And our 8th grade moving up ceremony and our high school graduation. Got all of our graduates were really excited, and it was a really nice ceremony. We had the academic excellence dinner with our top 5 students on May 20th. We had our board student representative event, which was held during finals week. We had the assembly that Mr. Grossman attended, the delegate assembly. Mr. Grossman, did you want to, I apologize, I'm kind of springing it on you. Did you have anything from the delegate assembly to report, like to share back? Seems like there were a lot of resolutions.
There were a lot of resolutions. A lot of it, to be honest, was a lot of just language, and it was nothing earth-shattering. No, it was a lot of it was change the to then. rather than neither. It was really a lot of language, truly.
Okay.
A lot of words, but nothing being said.
Correct.
Not a lot of substance. All right. We had in Trenton on June 1st, I attended the legislative committee meeting. It's held at the NJSBA headquarters. We had Assemblywoman Katz and Assemblywoman McCoy. Assemblywoman Katz was a board member. Assemblywoman McCoy is actually a current board member, which is very interesting because typically you can't hold two elected positions, but she is on a VOTEC school and it's an appointed position. So they have made the decision to allow her to continue to serve in that capacity. Some of the things discussed were obviously school funding. That was a hot topic. Efforts to get locally grown produce into schools. They talked about SNAP benefits and free and reduced lunch. One of the things that a board brought to their attention was that if a student is employed and their family is eligible for either SNAP benefits or free and reduced lunch, the student's income is calculated as part of the household income, and it can then bump the family out of receiving those services. So if the 16, 17-year-old student gets a job to help pay for the extras, it could actually jeopardize their family's access to resources. And one of the other items that we discussed was the access. So in New Jersey, we have our own poverty threshold, and it's higher than the federal poverty threshold. And so when we look at our at-risk student population that's utilized as part of the statute for the funding formula, they use the state threshold and they use the federal threshold and not the state threshold. So there's about 15% of students that could potentially be receiving benefits that aren't calculated in our at-risk population. So it's really kind of just a statutory issue that hasn't caught up to what the standard is now that they've revised that policy. But it's just one more area where we're not receiving funding for students that have been identified as part of that population. And the last thing, we just want to wish Mr. Crispin well in the future. And we really appreciate everything. And we're very grateful.
Don't be a stranger.
That's right. We know where to find you. And I will turn it over to Mr. Crispin.
Okay. Just a couple things here real quick to run through. First of all, I just want to take a couple minutes. HIB. So procedurally, because we really haven't had a chance, I've never really had a chance really to take us through this, and Dan can kind of fill in any of the gaps because we have a few minutes tonight. So this is the HIB report, the most recent HIB report for those incidents that have occurred between the last board meeting and this board meeting. So tonight we're presenting them to you. Generally, we don't go over them, as you know, as maybe the community also knows, because we really don't need to go over them unless they are appealed. After tonight, we send out letters to the parents informing them that the board has reviewed these. It's their opportunity then, if they feel that they're not in agreement with the determination that was made, to appeal to the board. If there's an appeal made, I think we have 10 days, right, to convene either a board meeting or a committee meeting to hear the appeal. Next board meeting, we would then determine whether we're accepting the appeal or not. So that's what happens in that window. And generally, if nothing happens, if you notice there's this item number 2 on curriculum and instruction, is reaffirming what happened and what information was presented to you at the May meeting. That's what kind of closes the deal. So tonight in curriculum and instruction, we're closing out May because there were no appeals heard. All right, so it's kind of like that stops. Tonight we present to you the new HIBs for the most recent 30 days, send out the letters, and we'll see if there's any appeals next month. So that's just kind of the bigger picture of why you see these things in 2 different places, but they are 2 different things. Security drills are there for your review for the month. Update moving administrative offices. We've been talking about this a lot, been keeping you posted. We've kind of been going back and forth in a lot of different scenarios. We know we're moving the offices. The board's appropriated the funding in order for the construction to be done. We'll begin the construction sometime this summer. We're working right now with the potential, as I've shared with the board, of maybe involving the architects. We're going to continue the conversation on whether we really need it or not. It's really a pretty simple what we're looking to do, but they might be helpful in some areas. But there's a cost associated with it, kind of eats into the budget, so we're weighing that out. We're getting quotes from all the different contractors for all the different work that needs to be done. The decision we're working on right now is, we know they're going to be moved, but the question now is, do we move the central administration now into a temporary location at Walls School, of which there's different options. Predominantly, probably the best option will be on the main floor at Walls, where there's 5 classrooms there, the main office is there, there's a lot of different areas that we could utilize to free up the space at Walls, where we could then potentially start to maybe do some of the work over this summer to begin to occupy that space, move the office from one side to the other, make the current main office at the Memorial back to a classroom again. It will give us a little bit more flexibility next year. So we're weighing out. I think there's a good chance that may be what we do. Maybe the question is going to be, do we move everybody in central office, or do we just move the superintendent curriculum to free up the outer space and then kind of do it gradually, or move everybody at the same time? So that's what's being discussed right now. But I think there's a good chance that we're going to do as much of the work this summer as we can in order to realize all the space that's available, and therefore then convert those 2 areas into 2 classrooms, which is what we need to be able to ensure that everybody has proper spaces for next year. So Rob will keep you updated on that one, but we're still getting close to finalizing that decision. We have a action on tonight for the referendum, right? That we'll be taking action on, so we're getting to a point, and we'll talk more about that. Maybe we can get to that agenda item. And high school schedule, I really don't have anything new to report. We're catching our breath right now. I know they've run some different scenarios as far as what the schedule could look like. 9-period day high school, 9-period day junior high, senior high, junior high, 9-period senior high, 8-period junior high, just to kind of see how it plays out. If we go with a 9 and a 9, it's really going to depend on having the staff available to cover a lot of those junior high sections. Because right now, we only have enough junior high teachers to really cover 8 periods. And we're barely doing that because we have reduced a few of those staff members as part of the budget reduction process. The reductions were kind of in those areas of the basic skills math, the basic skills ELA. So, if we are going to go to 9, we're going to need some of those high school teachers to offer some sort of elective type classes to juniors. So that's the running of the schedule to kind of see if that can work. Most of our senior high teachers are, a lot of them are teaching 6 classes already. So that flexibility is not that great up here. So that's why we're not optimistic that that's going to be the answer. And we talked about the possibility of an 8-period, 9-period. A junior high coming in maybe a little bit later, having a place for the junior high to be, housed for first period if they need to be dropped off. So, that's a possible scenario also, where the junior high would start on 2nd period of the high school schedule. We know it would be very nice if we could just have a separate junior high schedule that's longer than the senior high schedule, and even if it's 8 periods, they all start the day together or end the day together. The issue we have is we share staff and we share spaces. And when you share staff and share spaces, they have to be on the same schedule. So that's where we are. So hopefully we'll have more to share at our next meeting. And that's it.
All right. I'm going to leave it with you for the budget.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to run through this. This is more of formality because we've talked at length about this. A lot of districts didn't take the opportunity. We had an opportunity at the May 15th meeting to talk about all the alternatives, to talk about the impact. So if you remember at the May 15th meeting, we're coming in here, we had to approve all of our staff of renewals and non-renewals, but it was the same day we were told we were getting extra funding. So we had, the opportunity then to talk a little about how we were going to apply that extra funding. So if you recall, the extra funding, we were hoping to get 66% because that's what we got last year. We got a little bit of reduced amount. 66% would have been about $500,000. We felt $500,000 was kind of what we would really have liked to receive in order to maintain the positions that were necessary to what I like to describe, keep us strong. There were teaching positions involved. There was a child study team position involved, a secretarial position, which we kind of by oversight reduced that we shouldn't have at Memorial. We needed that. We had none. In the budget initially, we didn't have any. Of course, we would have found somehow, some way. And then we had one support position. It was a custodial type grounds type position that we really, really need. So we talked about the fact that 500 would have done it. We only had the 350. We then talked about the provision within the statute that was approved by the legislature that allowed us to increase the tax levy by the 1%. That's what the board decided to do. That's what we approved that evening. All that we just talked about requires a public hearing. That's kind of what we're doing tonight. But at this point, it's somewhat of a formality because we've already decided in terms of how that money would be spent. So just as a reminder, we've added back teachers at kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, and 4th grades. We did not add back into 2nd grade because 1st grade only has 3 teachers currently. So 3 can roll into 3 a little bit more comfortably. We did not add a teacher to 5th because 5th already had 4 teachers because the class size there was already so large. We had already that in the budget. So that, for the most part, gives us hopefully the proper amount of teaching staff members to maintain the optimum student-teacher ratio from kindergarten through 6th grade. The 6th grade also obviously has 4. So the teaching positions, we had brought back specifically 2 teachers. We have 2 openings that we're still looking to fill. Haven't decided how we're going to do that. In addition to that, at that night, we also brought back the child study team position. We had that person's name removed from the list that was non-renewed, so that was one. The memorial secretary that I mentioned, and then there was the other kind of the grounds, the facility type position. At the time, we weren't really sure which one it was going to be. There is a facility position. It kind of is like a all-purpose grounds, maintenance, does custodial. That's the position that we have eliminated. So it's going to keep the number of custodians the same in all the buildings, which we thought was extremely important. We had cut 2 positions. Now we can bring back that custodial position because, you know, we're challenged right now. The buildings are big. The elementary school is a big building. We have 3 people there. High school, we got it back to 3 people. We had 2 before. Got it back to 3 last year. Now we're going to still have 3 here at this building, and we still have our 1 day, 1 night at Memorial, which is kind of what we've always had. So we really feel good about that. So they're the positions that we've approved. Budget's been submitted to the county office.
Yes.
County has reviewed it and approved it. And so what you see reflected there on page number 2 is the total expenditures and less the anticipated revenue with the tax impact on that last line. That's it.
Now we'll provide an opportunity for public comment on the budget. If you'd like to be recognized to speak, please stand to the podium located to my left. State your name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation if applicable. Okay, seeing no one. We're going to turn it over to our chairperson of Finance and Facilities, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you.
Separate vote on that. Yeah, we'll do a separate vote.
The Finance and Facilities Committee met on Wednesday, June the 12th at 3:30 p.m. via Zoom meeting. The meeting lasted approximately 50 minutes. We retired at 4:20 p.m. In attendance were myself, Board President April Miller, Sarah Bolton. Lost my spot now. Business Administrator and Board Secretary Robert Miles, as well as our distinguished outgoing Interim Superintendent, Mr. Crispin. Along with discussing the normal consent agenda items 1 through 5 on the agenda, we discussed in greater detail our rates for the 24-25 school year to the LEAs, that's the local education agencies, for our intake of students for services. We discussed in detail item number 15, a professional contract for a school physician. Previously, we've been with Dr. Herman at a rate of $9,000 a year, but he's decided not to re-up this coming year. We had a bid from Dr. Kerner for $20,000 for the year, which we discussed the amount, questioned it, and then we did some research on it, and it's in line. It appears football games and knowledge of labor contracts in regards to physicals and medical clearances are widely regarded. He is widely regarded as the best around in that area. Item number 21, the motion to approve capital reserve transfer. We cannot have over 4% in savings of our total budget in savings. In general savings by law, so we moved last year's budget surplus into the capital reserve fund for building and project maintenance costs that arise throughout the year. Item number 24 is cafeteria rates for next year, slight increase to students of 10 cents with a staff increase to 90 cents and 40 cents respectively. Discussion topics off agenda surrounded the referendum projects, which we'll get into later, I'm sure. And specifically the moving of the admin offices, which Mr. Crispin already covered. And the replenishment of accounts for the lunchtime program. Replenishment can only be tied to a balance trigger when it renews on our parents' cards, not a date of month trigger. So that's not an option for some parents that inquired about it. And moving forward on the ROD grant projects for the high school gym, for the air conditioning in the gym and the locker rooms. That concludes my report.
Mr. Grossman, I think you should move item 1 as a standalone item over the transfers.
No, item
Oh, the
3.
budget.
It's item 3. I'm mistaken.
Oh, I'm
So it's
sorry.
not, 1 was the presentation. It's not a motion. It's numbered 3.
Okay, so it's number 3 under the public hearing.
It's number 3 under the budget.
Okay, so go back. So what you're gonna do is approve the budget resolution as stated. So that's going to be a
That's the first
standalone.
motion, okay.
Correct.
So the first motion to be made is to approve our revised budget, the final numbers as standalone on page 1 of the agenda.
Page 2.
Page 2, sorry.
Yeah.
The back of page 1.
Back on the first piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. May I have a second?
Second, Bolton.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Miles, please call the roll.
All right, roll call. Mrs. Bolton?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell? Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higby Iono?
Yes.
Mrs. Pote?
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
So take us to the finance and facility for the remaining.
And I make a motion to approve the items 1 through 28 as written on the agenda.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Board, any discussion?
Not over yet.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second, Bolton.
Okay, Mr. Miles, please call the vote.
All right. Mrs. Bolton?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higby Iono?
Yes.
Mrs. Pote?
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, curriculum instruction, I'm going to turn it over to our committee chairwoman, Mrs. Farrell.
The Curriculum Instruction Committee met on Wednesday, June 12th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. In attendance were Mr. Crispin, Mr. Miles, Mrs. Moody, Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Papalardo, and myself. We talked about many items on tonight's agenda, which included just some standard items. Some of the other items discussed included the approval of tenured, non-tenured staff and support staff, the approval of summer work. There are some resignations and retirements on this evening's agenda. Non-agenda items included the PEA settlement, mentorship role compensations, and also the performance reports that are provided by the state are available to look at. Anyone can Google New Jersey school performance, and it's available to the public and is user-friendly, and that's for the 22-23 school year. Any questions? Yeah, you have a question?
Pardon? Oh, is there any discussion? You can, if you want to move the motion.
Okay. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 2 through 68 as written.
Okay, may I have a second? Second. All right, any discussion, Mr. Crispin?
Yeah, I'll just comment on a couple things. Certainly, there's a lot here. Certainly, when I look at the resignations, it's disheartening when we lose great people, but it happens. It's part of the business. But on the flip side, when I look at the people that we're able to hire, it's exciting, and consider ourselves very fortunate to be able to maintain the quality of instruction that we expect here in this district. I express to the board and for the community, this is getting harder and harder every year, just because of the lack of number of people that are out there, candidates, either graduating, moving through the schools, but I think we've done very well. But of course, there's a price to be paid for that. So when you lose really good math teachers and really good science teachers and finding these people, we've done very well. So first of all, let me just kind of go through them in order. First, as far as the administrative assistant, Joanne's coming back. We're excited for that. Be able to offer her an opportunity to return. In essence, we have brought back all of the administrative assistants, secretaries that we unfortunately had to let go last year as part of the reductions in staff. Unfortunately, Deborah Nero could not stay with us for personal reasons, and that opened up an opportunity for Joanne. So Joanne will be returning as our full-time secretary over at Memorial School. She's very excited, and we're just happy to be able to provide her that opportunity. Cynthia Shivo is a math teacher, junior, senior high school. Cindy worked in this district this year, worked at the middle school level, high energy. She's going to be a great fit. She's very excited. She's been one of those people that kind of got lost as she was an administrator and just been rejuvenated by coming back here at Pitman. And there was a couple other teachers that were kind of in that same position, and very happy to be here. Kimberly Nefferdorf is our math teacher. She had an opportunity to visit the school here. She's extremely excited. She's coming from Overbrook Regional, so she's got some experience there. Gianna Morgani is the school nurse at Pitman Elementary. That's been a tough position for us to fill. It's a tough position because almost every nurse that we are interviewing, they don't have the certificate. They're going to have to go back and get their certification, so they have that workload on them. There's issues sometimes with benefits. Most of them are coming out of the RN fields, and so it's been a little bit of a challenge. We actually hired someone a couple months ago, and unfortunately they had to rescind, and they had resigned the position. They had to rescind that, so we're really excited about Gianna. She's young, she's excited, she's energetic, so she'll be coming on board. Daria Hall, we just met this morning. someone who's got a lot of experience in the area of science instruction. She's in Cherry Hill East right now and just looking for a change. And she's heard the great things about Pitman and just excited to be able to come here, have a new beginning, something that's smaller, it's more intimate. You can imagine what it's like at Cherry Hill at East. Obviously, there's a price. She's taken a significant pay cut to come here. So we're really excited, again, to be able to maintain the quality of instruction. Last but not least, we're certainly very excited to be able to recommend to the board Ryan Caltabiano as our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. I shared with the board, we had a huge number. I think we had over 60 people that applied. We interviewed initially in a screening search about 18 of those individuals. Most, if not all of them, very qualified, down to 5. Our interviewing team met the 5. We narrowed that down to 2, and then we selected our finalists. We got down to the 2. I told both, you put your names in the hats, and we'd be satisfied with either very high qualified individuals. Ryan is currently serving in this capacity. We felt he was the best fit because with all the transitions, even though Dr. Preston is serving in this position in his current district, he's going to have enough to deal with in his transition as becoming now a superintendent of schools, not to have to worry about training someone in that position. Ryan is currently serving as Director of Curriculum Instruction in Salem City. He's got a wealth of experience in a lot of different areas. He's a great individual. I think he's going to do great things here in this district, so we're excited about bringing him on board in this capacity, again, knowing that he's got big shoes to fill. So, all good, all good.
Mr. Long, we need to amend the language in a couple of these, so how should we proceed?
Sure, which ones do you need?
We need to amend number 21 to say math teacher. And then we need to remove a staff member in 44 and 45.
Sure. So my suggestion would be, somebody makes a motion to amend, and you can make that motion, Mrs. Miller.
Okay.
List what the changes are. Someone seconds, you do it all in favor, and then you proceed with the roll call vote as amended by that sub-motion within your motion.
Okay. All right. So I will make
Robert's rules, baby.
I will make a motion to amend item number 21 to replace the word special education teacher with math.
Can we change that also to junior high?
Okay, and junior high. And I will additionally ask in number 44 and 45 that we remove the staff member who has recently given resignation. I have a second.
Second, Pappalardo.
Okay. And we need to call a roll on this, you said?
No, this is an all in favor, just
Okay.
to amend, but
Sure.
still.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Any objections? Okay. And so we've already had a first and second on the prior, so.
Right,
we
you've
can
amended
call-
it, that stays on the board, just proceed with your roll call.
Okay. Mr. Miles, if you
Right.
would call.
Mrs. Bolton?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higbee Iono?
Yes.
Mrs. Pote?
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. That's
So
it.
does this one,
That's
does
nice.
this stay then?
Can you tell me what it is? What page? I can't see
Oh,
that.
that one.
Number 50,
Oh, we should have amended that too.
59, right? I was a
Where
little
were you a
confused when I
second ago,
saw
Mrs.
that.
Bolton?
I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right.
No,
So
we've
It
just
just
had a lot of
went
late,
through
a
it.
lot of
No, in
11
July, we're gonna
hours.
need it in
That's
July.
quite all right. So what you do
I don't make it
is
feel
make
bad.
a motion to amend, state the new amendment, second, that's an all in favor, and then you do a roll call motion to approve.
We're in summer mood.
Yes.
Keep, this is the most active I've been all year.
Hey, we're getting our box work.
Hey,
We already approved you. You're here.
that's true.
Ms.
Been
Bolton,
the
you
same
want to
amount
amend?
Sure, what am I doing? Recommend
Motion to amend number
motion to
59.
amend 59,
Okay.
to be changing the name, or are we just taking that out?
Will be.
You can change the
You
name
tell me,
to
it's
Robert
your
Miles.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
probably gonna switch that on too.
Welcome to Pitman.
Poor
Your name's gonna
guy.
go in a lot of boxes. Yep. Uh-huh.
Just keeps piling the hats
Yeah.
on.
Uh-huh. Okay. May I have a second?
Second, Farrell.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any objections? Okay. All right, that is going to take us, hopefully, to communication and policy, and I will turn it over to Chairwoman Mrs. Higbee.
Committee had kind of a light month. We have our revised policy 12/20 on the qualifications of the chief school administrator, which hopefully policy won't be utilized for many years.
Right.
But it, as we discussed last month, it just provides a little more flexibility to future boards when selecting a new school superintendent. We did discuss the possibility of addressing some other upcoming district issues through policies. We'll need to continue that discussion next month when Dr. Preston's on board. So that's it. So with that, I move to approve item number 1 as written, the first reading of revised policy 12/20.
May I have a second?
Second, Post.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Miles, please call the vote.
All right, roll call. Mrs. Bolton?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mrs. Higby Iono?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. It's going to bring us to our third public comment. To be recognized speaks, please stand to the podium located to my left, state your name, group affiliation, and municipality of residence.
Hit me with that again. Name, group affiliation, and municipality of residence.
Yes, I think I said it out of
Michael
order. Uh-huh.
Borough of Pitman, Pitman, New Jersey. I just want to take a second to thank Mr. Crispin on behalf of all the parents, families, and indeed all the residents of the Borough of Pitman that see value in what you all do here and in our local school district. And just to thank you for everything that you have done, walking into an incredibly interesting, I'll say, situation, and handling it as obviously as best as could be done for the future of this district. And to thank you also for always being available, willing to talk. I hope I speak for Councilman Mazzola as well, serving as council's liaison to the school board, but we just really appreciate everything that you have done. And we have no doubt we will still see you all over too. So
Sure.
thank you very much.
Well said.
All right. Seeing no one else, that will bring us to old business.
I would just like to take an opportunity to certainly thank the board for this opportunity that I've had for the last couple of years. You know, I know 2 years ago, and I know not everybody was here at the time, not knowing really which direction you want to go, interim or trying to find somebody. I'm glad you gave me the opportunity. It's a great opportunity to serve the district and certainly serve this community. Certainly it's been with its challenges, but it's been very, very enjoyable. This is a special place, and you know I've said that many times, and I tell people, I've been some great places, and I thought they were all wonderful. But until you get here, and until you really get inside and really get an opportunity to interact with the people, you guys have been a great board, a super board to work for, and if I was really, really smart right now, I would call it quits and just say, let that last experience be a real positive one, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But I really appreciate it. The past 2 years, thank you. And then the recognition and the resolution, a little bit of a surprise there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make sure there's nets on those courts at all.
Yeah.
That's one thing
Well
I don't like
maintained.
seeing,
We did
basketball
hear.
courts without nets.
We have heard that joke. They're like, wait a second, I bet they get really well maintained. I think.
They will be.
Any new business? Any discussion? Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Grossman.
May I have a second? Second, Farrell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? The next 7 p.m. in the Pitman High School Media Center.
Mr. Blunt for